One day, Quacker was thinking. That's right, thinking. What am I going to play? Nothing. I know, I'll play this instead. Business is all about deals, so I guess arguably life is about deals. So the game It's a Deal is about life, kind of. In fact, actually it's not at all. It's a kind of throw the dice, move around, buy shares, buy gold, win with the most gold and most shares game. A bit like Monopoly, but a bit souped up, let's say. Anyway, join us as we play the American game, It's a Deal. So I'm going to do the unboxing now. Just to point out, I have already unboxed and put the pieces together so that just to show you what it looks like inside. Start with a comment on this. This is a very dull, very kind of standard, bog standard looking box. It looks like it's been put together on a template. You've got the brands that you'll be buying, or the shares you'll be buying, a kind of share option thing here, share tracker things, right? And then obviously the dough, and people with gold sliding down, yada yada. Oh, yeah, exactly. Instructions, gone for the instructions, pretty clear, pretty crisp, pretty straightforward. You'd expect it though, the game is not really designed to make itself more difficult. The mechanics are pretty much simplified in play. A board, which I like the board. I think the board is certainly family friendly. I think that it tries to differentiate itself from Monopoly and does so slightly well. One thing I will note is also that I think that the colour scheme is very good, because it's quite universal, and it's quite I guess you would say simple. So what happens is that people will understand these blue tones, these kind of orange, slightly day-glow orange tones. It plays into the fact that the game's not overly serious, but also there is a level of seriousness to it. These are your cards, which you have basically like luck cards, fortune cards, and they're called. Then you've got your money, which is slightly different from Monopoly. You've got your gold, and see the gold is zooming in everywhere, but it basically should sit actually in the middle pile, and I put it to the side just for the time being. And then you've got your suitcases, which I like these little suitcases, I think they're quite neat. Your dice, and then your shares here. Anyway, that's all of that put away, and what I'll do now is I'll do a review of the game. The only other thing to note before I do that is that I like this idea of the gold. I think is quite interesting because it adds a layer of complexity to it, but I'll talk about that in the review. Anyway, join us as we review It's a Deal. So, It's a Deal. There's a lot to like about the game, simply because it's not really trying to be anything. It's not trying to be overly complex, it's not trying to be overly sophisticated. It's really only trying to be a game that you can play to pass, I would say, probably 15 to 20 minutes of your time. It does suggest that it probably would be for 8 years plus, and I agree with that, and it says it's 2 to 6 players, although I would probably suggest 4 players is probably just about right. 6 is too many, 2 is too few type of thing. The game is quite simply a roll and move, and then collect whatever's on here. It doesn't require any level of more sophistication than that. Each player starts with $50,000 or game money, as it's probably called in this, and what you effectively do is buy shares to get gold. You use these tokens occasionally when you land on fortune spaces, and they'll tell you particular things. They're clearly written, To be fair, they're quite dull. There's no real creativity in the imagery or in the construction, but it doesn't really need it. Overall, the game is quite simplified to the point where pretty much anyone can play it and get some level of enjoyment from it. It doesn't have the issues of Monopoly, where you get into a feedback loop of continually trying to basically avoid squares or just maximise your revenue. This has very clear goals where you're trying to get these, and the person who gets the most wins the game, and when they're all gone or all exhausted, that's the end of the game. The shares are basically bartered and then traded and then become a part of the sort of lose and win, ebb and flow of the stock market, which is quite interesting because actually that does replicate very slightly how the market works. But overall, the game is not sophisticated enough to be more difficult than that. It's quite simple, it's quite strategically bereft of any sort of level of ideas, because the fact is it's based on luck. So as you see here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, you draw a fortune card, etc, etc. I don't mind it actually though, because I think that, to be honest, what it's targeting, its audience, is basically a family. It's supposed to be for family and family dynamics, which means, simply enough, the game plays well for that purpose. It's not desiring to be anything more than that. It isn't like some other games though where there's a family element, but it does add a level of, I guess you would say, a level of unexpected chaos, because the fact that you're doing a particular system. This is really a roll and move, and as such you can always see 6 ahead and see what options you have if you roll particular dice. And to be fair, after 3 or 4 times round, the game generally ends up going in a particular direction, because you see that this pool will drastically reduce quite quickly. That said, the game is one that I would probably recommend only if you're looking for something to pass the time, not something that you want to sit down and have a long-term relationship with it. So it's not the sort of game that Game Club, for instance, would play more than once. However, it's the sort of game that Game Club, in these particular times, and if you've got children and you and a partner are there, or you and some friends are there, say for instance you're living in a house share together, this would be ideal for that, because it will pass at least enough time that you've got an evening covered. Now, before I said about 20 minutes, the 20 minutes is really if you're playing 2 players. If you're playing, say for instance, 4 to 6 players, once again we recommend 4, you'll be looking at about an hour and a half, just dependent on how lucky you are with the dice. Anyway, that was It's a Deal. This is Game Club and I'm Simon. Thank you very much for watching.